All right, thanks for joining us, everyone. My name is Jenna Dean, and I am the Towards Zero Waste Program Manager at Sustainable Connections, and supporting me today is Brandy Hutton, our Towards Zero Waste Program Coordinator. Today, we will be addressing Bellingham's upcoming single-use plastics ban that will take effect starting July 31st, 2022, and how it affects the food service industry. We will provide an overview of this ordinance and state single-use plastic laws, share resources, and learn from our panelists who have already made the switch to compostables. We will have a Q&A section at the end, so please add your questions to the chat and we will address them then. The slideshow, the recording, and any resources mentioned will be emailed to all of you registered participants with the email that you used to register. We have three great panelists today. Melissa Elkins, Administrative and Sustainability Manager at the Community Food Co-op, Carl Shulhanik, owner of Kebab Casual and Carb Casual, and Jenny Hannon, General Manager at Colophon Cafe. I will pause to acknowledge that I am residing on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territory of the Lummi people. The Lummi people are the original inhabitants of Washington's northernmost coast and southern British Columbia. They lived in villages throughout this territory and continue to have an ongoing relationship with these areas. Since time immemorial, they have celebrated life on their land, waterways, and on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded lands of their people to perpetuate their way of life. Please join me in taking a moment of silence as we honor their ancestors and as we acknowledge the past, present, and future Lummi people as the original inhabitants of this land. And I want to thank the Lummi Indian Business Council for offering this acknowledgement for others to use. You can find out which ancestral lands you're occupying by visiting the link in the chat. Acknowledgement is just a first step, and we invite you to take action to support the Indigenous peoples of your area. Make sure to explore the Native Land link if you aren't aware of who they are. Thank you to our amazing sponsors and our partners, the City of Bellingham, Whatcom County, and the Department of Ecology. And we have a lot of great businesses represented here today. So in the chat, please add the business you are representing. And if you aren't representing a business, please add what brought you here today. And feel free to keep adding those comments in the chat as I move along. So let's start with an overview of how the single-use plastics ordinance affects the food service industry. First of all, the ordinance defines food service businesses as businesses that provide food for consumption on or off the premises. For example, restaurants, brew pubs, fast food restaurants, cafes, delis, coffee shops, grocery stores, vending trucks, booths, carts, home delivery services, and even theaters. Durable dishware will now be required for on-site dining establishments, and all to-go food utensils, straws, cups, containers, and packaging will need to be reusable or compostable. And utensils and condiments by request only in accordance with an existing state law. So if you do not currently have a dishwasher on site to accommodate durables, you may apply for an up to 1 year extension if you can prove hardships such as insurmountable space constraints, undue financial burden, or other extraordinary circumstances. And you can reapply for an extension again if needed. There are some exemptions to the single-use plastic items, including produce bags, catering trays, clear plastic food and shrink wrap, uniquely shaped containers like cupcake holders, and the absorbent liner underneath meat. And these exemptions will be reevaluated yearly and may remain exempt until two suitable and readily available compostable alternatives are available. Any pre-made food products packaged in a factory and shipped to your business may still be sold at your place of business. And flexible plastic straws may be provided by request for people with disabilities. This ordinance adds on to existing state laws, a plastic bag ban, which replaced a similar law Bellingham has had since 2012, and State Senate Bill 5022, which allows single-use items by request only, including compostables. So this means compostable utensils, straws, and single-use condiment packets must be made available by customer request only, and this includes takeout and drive-through. Customers must be able to select just the utensil they need, so you're not packaging all the utensils together. But you can make containers with these items available for self-serve. Bulk condiment dispensers are strongly encouraged, and again, flexible plastic straws may be provided upon request for people with disabilities. Now, of course, we're here to help. And again, I just wanted to make sure you all know you will receive an email with links to all resources mentioned. We have a number of resources on our single-use plastics page, including a product purchasing guide. This includes products that are locally compostable and notes which are available at our local U.S. Chef store. It also includes a link to the Compost Manufacturing Alliance products page, which you can use to see if a product you currently carry is locally compostable. We have posters and signs that you can download and print yourself or contact us for copies, and a help desk contact form for questions and technical assistance. A note that we are not in charge of enforcement, but this page will have information for who to contact at the City of Bellingham. We'll be hosting a similar event to this one for Spanish speakers on May 23rd, and you can really help us pass the word along to any colleagues that would prefer to learn in Spanish. We'll have event registration available soon. I wanted to note that what isn't included in this ordinance is a composting requirement. However, just last month, the governor signed House Bill 1799 into law, which, among other things, requires businesses to make a certain level of organic waste to compost it. We will be working to support our business community and have a special early adopter program for businesses that want to obtain Food Plus before required by state law. So if you're interested in learning more and perhaps participating, please fill out a quick form. Brandy will put the link in the chat, and then we'll also have this link in our follow-up email, and we'll contact you with more details. So we at Towards Zero Waste offer free waste assessments. So if your business would benefit from custom support, you can sign up for that too. Link in the chat, and will also be emailed to you. And then, of course, a quick plug for our food recovery program. If you find your business is throwing away or even composting edible food, contact us and we'll get that food to people who would appreciate it and you a tax deduction. All right, so I'm going to pass it over to our panelists now. Each panelist will have a turn to share their experience and tips for transitioning and using compostables. And feel free to keep adding any questions to the chat. We'll answer them all after our panelists share in our Q&A session. So it's my pleasure to first introduce Jenny Hannon, the General Manager at Cauliflower Cafe. Jenny, thanks for joining us. I'll pass it over to you.
Thank you so much, Jenna, and Brandy, for asking me to do this. Brandy and I have had a long history in the last couple of years of food recovery, so it's a really cool honor. I wrote a couple notes as far as the call upon those of you that do know or don't know. We're actually one of the founding members of the Towards Zero Waste initiative brought on by Sustainable Connections. In talking to my owner, actually, so this month celebrates my 8th year being there. I shouldn't tell you how long he's been there, but we were composting before it was even something that was happening before Village Books actually was in its location. He mentioned that we were creating our own pile and trying to turn it into mulch and then let the community kind of use it. So I thought that was a cool ad. First and foremost, we've been using the compostable bins through SSC, and with the help of Sustainable Connections has made it super accessible for us to be able to do that. And then in my 8 years, one of my favorite things about working here is being a part of the training process, getting to talk to each of the new oncoming employees. I get a lot of students, a lot of environmental science majors, people who are really interested in environmental justice. And so it's really cool to be able to share about business experience and bring that together. One of the really early challenges when we were first moving to compostables 10 plus years ago was that they weren't really made to the quality that they are now. There's so many more options than even when I started doing the ordering. So it's kind of incredible to see the growth that's been made. One of the things I always like to note as far as a business is we are less than 5% solid waste to the landfill. We try to compost and recycle. That means as much takeaway as we can. We try to do that, and we've been doing that for years, which is really awesome. As far as a breakdown, I was just looking at our SSC bill today we got in. So for those business owners who are interested in that cost for us, we have 3 compost toters that we get picked up twice a week. The monthly cost is $57.15 is what we got charged. We have 1 trash toter that we get picked up once a week, again, because of the lack of trash that we produce. For the monthly bill, that is $33.99. So you can kind of do the math as far as what we'd be spending trash versus compost. As far as where we get our products, we predominantly source it through US Foods, as well as the Chef Store, formerly known as Cash and Carry. We get products anywhere from utensils, containers, cups, lids, straws, and even our gloves that we use. So all of those glove prices, as all of the restaurant owners know that have been going up and down, we've been using compostable gloves, and that cost has remained the same throughout the pandemic, which is pretty incredible. Another quick cost breakdown, I just looked up in our purchasing inventory for like a plastic fork, for example, the cost per unit of a fork that is compostable versus plastic is 9 cents for compostable versus about 5 cents for plastic. So you are going to be spending more on that compostable product. However, we are saving in the disposal, which for us is way more important and meaningful. 2 main producers that we use, I looked this up, was Southern Champion and Plus Bio Earth, which are actually local Washington producers, which is, I think, is pretty incredible. The last thing that I kind of wanted to note was the employee response. Again, one of the things that we have been actively working on in the Fairhaven community is getting other businesses on board. In the last couple of years, we actually had a neighboring business. I had a former employee of said business reach out to me and say how cool it was that we composted, and that they kept trying to convince their owner to compost. And basically, my owner and their owner sat down, and he just said, look, here's the why. And we were able to convince that restaurant to move towards compostable takeaway products, compost food waste, and all that kind of stuff. So that's pretty incredible. I think that we also have a really good retention of employees that value what we are doing as far as an environmental impact. And the last thing that I would just kind of mention, again, is just ease and accessibility. For us, it's a no-brainer to compost. It's so easy here in Bellingham. It would be silly for us to not. So I've enjoyed being a part of a business that promotes it, being able to be in the training process to promote it, and being here to also promote it. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Jenny. That was really informative, and I love the information about the costs on both ends of it. Really helpful. Next, we have Carl Shilhonic, owner of Kebab Casual and Carve Casual. So Carl, I'll let you chime in.
Yeah, thank you, Jenna, and appreciate it, Jenny. So I own Kebab Casual and Carve Casual. You can see the kebab truck behind me. two food trucks in town. We opened Kebab Casual in 2018 and Carve Casual last year about this time. We are almost solely takeout. One of our trucks is at a brewery, so we sell some food there. But for the most part, it's online sales, it's DoorDash, Grubhub, things like that. And it has been pretty much since we've been open. We have been doing food plus waste recycling and using compostable takeout containers as much as possible from the beginning. It always struck me as Bellingham being the type of town where, I mean, it's a great marketing tool. There are also some very unique and stylish compostable packages that you can find if you search around a little bit, which really accentuate your food. They look great, and also they're fantastic for the environment. And then 2020 happened, and for those of us who do shop at Chef's Store, you're seeing prices go everywhere, and just availability become a massive problem. And when you're playing with every cent matters like we are in this industry, it's very difficult to just have no idea what's happening with your prices. So my advice for people that are kind of like me, like you look at my background there, and that's pretty much all the storage I have. My advice would be to find more storage and make a plan to be able to order about a month in advance for what you need. I love the people at Cash and Carry Chef Store, but they're having the same problems we are. You can't count on things being there when you need them, and if they're not, then you get hit really hard on prices, and it's kind of a bummer to see $1 go down the drain just on packaging alone when you have food items that you're working hard on to try to keep affordable for everybody and be able to make some money while you're at it there. So that was the big thing for me, was keeping track of inventories in a lot more organized fashion, and then just getting way ahead on ordering. So those have been the big takeaways for me. We've still been having a lot of challenges with some products, like ketchup cups, smaller ounce cups, things like that are just really, really hard to find. And also, if you're doing things, hot and cold, liquidous materials, you're going to have some trouble finding great containers for that in bulk as well. So I would say for primarily a takeout operation, it hasn't been easy. And we've really had to turn to the online sources to make that happen. But I have nothing but good things to say about the food plus waste recycling. That's been a no-brainer for us. It's super easy, super cheap. And I think whether or not the city ordinance was going to happen, moving to sustainable takeout materials just makes sense from a customer standpoint. People notice it, people want it, and it's just becoming the industry standard. You just have to do it in a way that doesn't kill your bottom line. And I guess the question that I would pose to the community and to Sustainable Connections is, how do we make it possible for restaurants that have like a smaller average ticket to be able to afford that? Like for Kebab Casual, average item is going to be $17, $18. So a 60-cent takeout package, doesn't hurt you too bad. But somebody has to sell meals for $6 to $8 on a really low margin, and they're not getting any sort of price break on their end. So if, as a community, we've decided that this is something that has to happen, how do we make that not sort of a regressive tax on businesses that serve a lower price point? Because I think that's really important. And it's like, I hate to see styrofoam go into the landfill, but I also understand why some operators choose that. I mean, you have to, if you want to be in business, you have to make a margin. So that would be my only concern with these upcoming changes to the code. And I think we can find ways to make it work for everybody. But luckily for us, we've been just blessed all the way around, and folks are happy to see compostable packaging, and it's worked out for me as well. It's just getting ahead. And I'm seeing a question from Richard here: how much buffer time? Honestly, a month. I think you can feel pretty safe getting things in. We use a website called Webstront Store. It's like restaurant, the Webstaurant, and they have very good prices. You can get like a monthly subscription to their Plus shipping account, but it is super inconsistent on when you can expect things to get in. So if I would just really recommend having a month's worth of supplies sitting around, and it's worth even just getting a storage unit for. That's what I do. You're gonna save the money on it, and if you have to run down to cash and carry, it's gonna hurt. So be prepared, have a good inventory system, and it's really not that big of a deal. So that's about all I have. And yep, chime in if you have any questions.
Thank you so much, Carl. Those are some great tips about supply issues. And this makes me wonder if there's opportunity for multiple businesses to go in on a storage unit together, perhaps. I don't know, but maybe that's an option. And I also loved what you said about it being a marketing tool. I really think people are responsive to using compostables in this area. And so I love the idea of just, singing it from the mountaintop that you're using those materials, you've made that switch. And I like to think that you'll get some increased business because of that. So thanks for bringing that up. We have one more panelist to share, Melissa Elkins, who's the Administrative and Sustainability Manager at the Community Food Co-op. Melissa, I'll let you take it away.
All right. Hi, everyone. Thanks, yes, to Sustainable Connections and all the attendees and both the speakers. This has been really interesting so far for me, too. So I've worked at the Community Food Co-op for over 25 years, and I've been the Sustainability Manager for about the last decade or so. If you're not familiar with the co-op, we've been in business since 1970. We have 2 full-service grocery stores in town and then a mixed-use building with a wholesale bakery. So I kind of bring a different perspective since we're a larger business using compostable packaging. As a grocery store, packaging is a really big part of our business. We're responsible for some of it, but not all of it. But at the end of the day, if we're carrying it, we should be able to tell you why we're carrying that product. The overall volume of packaging that we purchase is over $300,000 annually. And so we're in a little bit different position, I think, than a lot of the smaller businesses. In an ideal world, sustainable packaging would be the least expensive option. But we all know that's not the case. So I'm going to kind of run through like a few of our challenges, successes, and then just a couple tips that I have. And so I'm going to start with challenges that I've run into in my tenure at the co-op. Pricing indeed is a big one, even for us. We're part of a larger national cooperative that sets us up with contracted packaging deals. But it still isn't comprehensive, and sometimes what we're looking for isn't part of that contract. For example, we wanted to switch away from foam trays in our meat department for so many years, but the plastic alternatives are just priced so high that they aren't part of the national contract. And as many times as I've looked, it just hasn't been a realistic option for us. Which kind of brings me to availability. Sometimes we'll see an awesome alternative, but it's just not available to us through any viable channels. This has gotten a lot better over the last decade, but it's still an issue. Other times manufacturers will develop some fantastic packaging technology, but then they keep it proprietary. This too is also improving. The co-op's part of several industry groups that have created sustainable packaging working groups that work with natural food brands and stores. And so a lot more is being shared. And I hope that means that it'll just get better for everybody over the next several years. And honestly, the last little challenge that I have, at least, especially since we have so many staff, is that with all the packaging changes I've made over the years, it hasn't necessarily been always pricing issues, but getting buy-in from staff, as weird as that sounds, can sometimes be a challenge. Sometimes they're the toughest critics, but also the biggest champions. It's not that they don't want to switch to a more sustainable option, don't get me wrong. It's just that with with the level of production that we have, sometimes just a small change in habits and procedures can really throw a lot of things off. And so even with ongoing challenges, we of course have had a lot of successes that I'll share. We, as weird as this sounds, we replaced the bioplastic that we used in our deli grab and go back in 2016 with recycled content petroleum plastic packaging. Although we do try to purchase as many post-consumer recycled content containers as we can. We did this in part because there's greater equitable access to curbside recycling in our community, since that's not an add-on service like Food Plus Recycling. The co-op, of course, does participate in Food Plus Recycling. We kind of help develop. We have dumpsters. We send about 217 tons of compost through the Food Plus system every year with our stores. So we're definitely big proponents and cheerleaders for Food Plus Recycling. We too have found that it's much less expensive. Last time I checked, it's about a penny a pound versus 10 cents a pound for landfill at the volume that we're going at. Another success is that, we switched to using PLA line branded paperboard containers in our deli service case not long after we switched from the bioplastic to petroleum plastic. If you're not familiar with the term PLA, it stands for polylactic acid, which is essentially plastic made from renewable resources. We switched to plastic or paper straws in 2018, and in 2019, we stopped using plastic cold cups in favor of using lined hot cups, our PLA lined hot cups. And I'll note that our lids are commercially compostable. And as a result, we haven't purchased any plastic drink cups in over 3 years, which I love talking about. I think that's really exciting. We used to buy a lot of plastic cups. And then another thing that we've done recently, or kind of, during the pandemic actually, was due to a suggestion from one of our previous deli assistant managers. We started piloting using freezer paper to package items from our service case at our downtown store, items that we would normally put in a plastic bag, or we had put in a plastic bag in the past. As a result, we kept about over 16,000 plastic bags out of the landfill in 2021 just from that one deli doing this. And so we'll roll this out at our Cordata store more completely this spring. I'll note that the freezer paper we use isn't fully biodegradable. It doesn't have a PLA lining, but instead has a poly lining that utilizes minerals in its composition, but it's leaps and bounds better than plastic bags. And then the biggest one that I'm excited about is the recent change to the Washington Food Code, which allows reusables, which I feel is just a huge win for sustainability. It's something that we've been actively advocating for with the state, and it's really exciting that this is now a viable option to us, especially since it's been postponed the last 2 years due to the pandemic. We are currently working on our protocol and training, and I really hope that we have that implemented by this summer. And then just kind of in closing, there's just a few tips I want to share, which kind of work really well with some of the stuff that some of the other presenters have said. I think it is really great to offer positive feedback. When you see something that you like at another business, tell them. If you go and implement something similar, be sure to credit that idea when you're talking to customers. It's a really great way to promote both yours and another local business. And I really feel like it's something that can create loyalty for both of your businesses. Another thing is teaming up on like packaging purchases. I know you mentioned about teaming, having a storage together, but this is another way that you can do that. You might be able to get a discount for larger quantities when you're buying that all at once. When we were first ordering paper straws, I found a really great deal that the co-op could get on a huge order. So we offered our wholesale price break to another smaller local business that I knew was wanting to implement paper straws, but they just couldn't afford to make the switch. And so we were both able to make that switch at the same time. Another thing, of course, is working with Sustainable Connections to find solutions, and they're great for referring you to other local businesses who might be able to be a resource for you as well. And don't be afraid to try new things. Like a lot of packaging manufacturers will send you free samples, so you can try something without having to make a big initial purchase. Or if you see something that you like at another local business, ask the manager if you can buy a few pieces of unused packaging to test out to see if it would work for your business. Or at the very least, you can ask them where they got it, so then you can check it out on your own. And then kind of, oddly enough, circling back to staff, as hard as it is sometimes to get buy-in, it's always easier when the idea initially comes from them. They really know your systems and customers, and they can be a really awesome resource for ideas when you want to make changes. I love when staff take the time to think about this stuff because they can approach it from a different angle than I can, and so they can be a really great resource. And so, yeah, that was a lot of just skimming over a lot of details. I could talk to you guys for an hour about our packaging probably pretty easily, but I'll leave some time for questions.
Thanks so much, Melissa. It was really interesting just to hear about that, the experience at a place like the Co-op, which is, grocery too, and a little bit larger. And I just love the idea of, and the strategy of, working with other businesses, the fact that we're all stronger together. So, copying ideas and giving each other credit really just helps everyone succeed in the end. So thanks for bringing that up. We're going to move into our Q&A now, so I'm going to pass it over to Brandy.
Awesome. All right. So, and also too, I want to throw out there that we had kind of talked with a representative of the U.S. chef store in town here, and they weren't able to make our session tonight. However, I am in good communication. So if anybody has any products that they would like to see there, or some improvements, I'm happy to take that message to them because I have a pretty good open line of communication at the moment. And I guess from hearing from Carl, ramekins, to-go ramekins need some serious improvement here. The little sauce cups. And then also hitting on something that Melissa brought up is that for years we've been taking our reusable coffee cups to the coffee kiosk to get refilled, but it really has only been very recent that is actually legal. And that might not work at a restaurant level, but that does work at a deli level now. And so not just the Co-op, you go to Hagen, you go to anywhere, you can take your reusable container. It may take a while for those stores for it to catch on that it is it is an option, but keep championing that message if you can remember to bring your Tupperware containers. And then from here, I'd like to turn it over to the audience to ask any questions of our panelists. You can go ahead and take yourself off mute to ask those questions. Or pop it in the chat.
All right, I'll ask your question. Does anybody have a particular restaurant that they've seen a piece of takeout material that they liked? I'll go first. I like Anomaly Cafe Banter. They always have these nice burrito bowls. You can see through the lid, so you can see the toppings and the garnish. Boom, take a picture, put it on Instagram, even with the lid on it. They always do a really nice job.
I will say that the Culture Cafe has a to-go compostable bowl, and it's that molded paper fiber, and the lid is as well, which I thought was really interesting because a lot of times you'll see the bioplastic lid, which I think sometimes confuses people as to whether that's compostable or not. And so I liked seeing the lid made out of that same material as the bowl part.
I will also say those, we just call them brown boxes, but I usually call them clamshells, but I know they're not. But there's various sizes. And the last time I had gone to Pure Bliss to get a dessert, you know, they had just had a nice little stamp right on top. And I feel like, you know, you could use it as a really easy way to personalize and do some branding. You know, it's a lot easier to stamp on those than it is to stamp on styrofoam. I got a stamp from like Vistaprint, I think, and it was like $15, and you just, you know, easy branding too.
Well, I will say I was at a catering event recently and saw some of the best sustainable packaging I've ever seen, and that was from Dora at New Mexico Tamale Company. All the tamales, of course, were individually wrapped in nothing else but corn husk. It was fantastic, and yeah, hey, that's as good as it gets right there.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Carl. We've worked really hard as well with Sustainable Connections, and I think that we are about 89% there. Our dinnerware, and we just had our dishwasher machine installed, so we're pretty excited about that. When you couldn't get anyone to do the dishes, now it's like everybody wants to use the dishwasher, right? Because they get it done so fast. But in any case, I like the link that you send for Webstront. We've been using that specific type of takeout container for probably about ever since we relocated to Bellingham. I really like it, the durability, because we use a lot of sauces, the red enchilada sauce, the green, and I found it to be the most durable for our personal product. So as well as the reusable bags. So, and also the containers, the clamshell, that we use those also for our half dozens. So we've got a little bit of work to do still, and we're pretty excited. And for all of you out there, don't forget your food recovery too. Brandy will hook you up because that is important. Pay that food forward.
Yeah, and I also want to mention that our program has a new intern as of this week. Who's on this call, Elodie. So you may get to meet her this Friday, Dora. So welcome to the team, Elodie. And I am curious, Dora, you mentioned that you use the Webstront for your sauce cups. Now, is it a Webstront branded cup, or does it have another brand? Because that's the one item I find that seems to be, you know, packaging hot items seems to be what throws people as far as the compostable materials.
So the one I use is the link that you put on there for the takeout container for the 3-compartment, 1-compartment for the entrees. Okay. Those are the ones we use. We tried going with some other ones, and the durability on them, as soon as they get any kind of a moisture soak on them, it doesn't work well. Any kind of a saucy, the durability just isn't there. So, but those particular ones are just, they're really on point. They work really well.
Wonderful. And I know that we've ordered stuff for our program specifically from the Webstront store before. And it comes out of a freight company out of Oak Harbor too. So it's fairly local as far as, you know, the shipping company goes.
I know there have been a lot of people referencing hot products. So, I mean, we produce a lot of soups. Soups is definitely something we are well known for. The product we usually get, I believe, is from Greenware, and they just came out with a new line that uses, I believe it is the PLA plastic, but it can be composted within our compost system here in Bellingham. And it's a thinner amount of plastic. So they reduced the plastic even more than what was in it before, which we appreciated. And I think there was a question in the chat about cost of products. I'm sure Carl can also give some input because it sounds like we've been shopping around the same spot. Chef Store can be a little all over the place, but US Foods is its parent company, and their prices have remained pretty consistent. They always offer a replacement product. So the thing that's really neat about their inventory system is you have a product that your sales rep sets up for you, and then if for any reason that product can't be found, they will automatically link you to the most similar product. One that I've been keeping my eye on is compostable straws. We use corn straws, for example, and they didn't have a replacement. They suggested a plastic straw, and I saw it go as high as like $450 a case of 1,000 plastic straws, which is just bananas. But as far as cost going, I haven't seen it venture. Carl, you can give input, but I haven't seen it venture any more than, $10 per case over the last 2 years with the pandemic.
Yeah, it seems like those have actually stayed pretty steady. It's just more availability kind of turns into the problem. But yeah, it seems like it's kind of been the same for a while.
I'll note that as far as our costs go, it is a little bit different, but ours, I'm looking right now at my audits, and they remain pretty similar, even though we've been continuously adding more compostables to our mix. The cost has pretty much stayed pretty similar. The pandemic hit petroleum plastic products really hard, but didn't hit compostables as bad. We found it's not that prices dropped, which would have been nice, but it hasn't gotten exponentially worse. So that's good at least.
Yeah, when you're shopping around, I mean, everything on Chef Store is online, so you can look at the price there, and just if you just have 2 or 3 options you can look at, you have Chef Store, Webstron Store, and then if you're using US Foods or Cisco, it's pretty easy to do your comparables. And if you really are hurting bad, you can do big bet Amazon if you really, really, really have to, and try to avoid that.
There's a question here in the chat about single-use creamer cups, so like the plastic creamer that you would get with your coffee. My understanding of that would be that it would fall under the condiments ordinance that is put out by the state. And so that would be a by request only for your customers, or you're able to put out both single use utensils and condiments like in cups, so the customers can take as many as they need. But they can't be included automatically. There is the condiments, like if you're packaging a condiment for a customer to go, it needs to be in a compostable packaging. But if you're using bulk condiments that came in from another supplier that you're just offering to your customers, you can't control that packaging. And so the ordinance is not going to tag you for that. It just has to be by request. But the ordinance does encourage bulk dispensaries for ketchup and stuff like that if customers have the access to pump it themselves.
And just from my perspective as a takeout person, like I look at this as a good opportunity. Like if you're doing online ordering, you stick a little option there at the end, like, do you need utensils? And the way I see it now, there's nothing stopping you from tacking on 25, 50 cents if they do, because you have to have that question on there, and that at least opens the door for that, and then you can get some of that back.
I agree, Carl. We have had that option on our system since Ferndale, and it's a must answer question. Do you need utensils or not? So we were pretty lucky when that came in, although we still need to go into the compostable area there, but it does work.
I think the thing I like about the idea of that option that both Carl and it sounds like Dora used, we don't have an online system, but whenever I pick up a phone to go order, I ask them, and if they say no utensils, I just say, thanks for helping us save, right? Because at the end of the day, compostable is best, but I'd rather not waste it. I hate the fact that I have a junk drawer full of 30 plus pairs of chopsticks, maybe more, I don't know. And I hate it, but it's the reality. And so I love that this ordinance is also just moving in that direction of really only giving people what's needed. I think is really important to focus on too.
Absolutely, Jenny. At the end of the day, it is material nonetheless, and source reduction is king. Absolutely. All right. So does anybody have like a favorite brand that they've found? Dora was talking about her packaging, but I'm wondering if you have a favorite supplier that you tend to go to. I guess we've talked about suppliers, but perhaps brand.
We have been getting the last several years our paper straws from a guy who makes them in Mount Vernon. I yesterday I went to check to make sure I had his web address right, but he's very low tech, we'll say, and his website wasn't connecting, which has happened commonly throughout our relationship with him. But his straws are fantastic, and so if anybody wants that information, then feel free to contact me, and I can get you his contact information. But yeah, that was a pretty cool switch. He actually found us, and yeah, locally made paper straws. It's pretty cool.
That's absolutely amazing. I love it.
One of the local companies that we get a lot of products from is Cedar Grove. I want to say that they are in like the Kent area, I believe. I do know that they've had some issues with sourcing products. So again, that's where we normally get our straws. But various, doggy bags. They do have containers, like the little takeout containers that are like a quasi paper product, but they are a local Washington. So it's like Cedar Grove, Greenware, and I think Bio plus Earth are the three that we have had the most consistency with as far as quality, accessibility, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I would second what Emil put in the chat as far as like burrito bowls and stuff goes. That Good Start packaging is pretty solid, and they'll special order it for you at Chef Store, and it's actually like pretty affordable as well. So I would second that.
I know as a customer, some of the things that really have tickled me is the straws. If you've been to a bar and gotten a cocktail with a straw that's literally a piece of straw. And then also, we are bringing Towards Zero Waste events back to our program and are working with a few large events coming this summer. So if anybody is interested in volunteering for the green team with either Ski to Sea or the Northwest Tune-Up, and if you volunteer for the Northwest Tune-Up, you're going to get a free ticket, which is $150 value. They are looking at using single-use aluminum cups, is now a thing for their beer garden. Like I had always seen sort of that bioplastic cup. And so I'm really interested to see what a single-use aluminum cup is going to look like. Yes, it is single use, but aluminum is an infinitely recyclable material. And it's actually one of the fastest products recycled in our stream. Within 60 days, a can that you throw in your recycling toter is been recycled and is refilled with beer.
I have a question. How, if you do, how do you promote that you use compostables to your customers and kind of help customers know that they can compost them after they're done using them?
I must admit, I feel like we could do a better job at promoting how many compostables we use. A lot of the changes we make are generally quiet. We just kind of phase them in and move along. But using the compostables as kind of like a marketing tool, I think is really great, especially in our local community, because so many people are into that, and I know that I would, always choose to go to a business that uses them over businesses that don't. And so, like I said, we should be a little bit better. And honestly, we've not been great about it the last couple of years during the pandemic. Most of my job was kind of I had to take a step back and work in other admin areas. And so I'm just kind of delving back in. A lot of our programs just kept going because they had been so established, thank goodness, as far as sustainability goes. But that is definitely one of the things on my short list, is just that communication to customers about the various things that they can do besides throw our packaging away. And so I love hearing if anybody else has some really great ways that they use to promote compostables, because I may want to talk to you about that a little bit more.
I think for me, it starts with the initial training of the employees to talk about. I love to brag about it. It does feel weird sometimes. But if somebody asks me, hey, can I have a plastic fork? I say, no, it's actually compostable, but you can have a compostable one, which is a very silly joke. But something that I'm actually actively working on with the Historical Fairhaven Association. Scott Ward, the executive director, and I are actively trying to get compost put into Fairhaven. That really started because when the pandemic hit and so many businesses were forced to move to takeout, I reached out to a couple neighboring businesses knowing that they used compostables, and we all just shared our equal frustration to see people support us and then throw it away. And so the one thing that that we're trying to do is share, you can support us by coming to our business, but you can also support us by supporting our waste management and composting the products that we intentionally buy that can be used that way. So I'm hoping that when that actually gets into effect, rumor has it it's going to be closer to this summer, so maybe when more events happen we'll get some compost down there, but I'm sure that will also be a point of us to promote a little bit of what we're working on down there. So
I do want to say too, we have some materials at Sustainable Connections that we will bring to any business that will some talking points that you can leave at your point of sales or your host stand for any employee that's going to be handing out to-go food, just to remind them to talk trash with their customers and tell your customers, what is the best way to properly dispose of the materials they're taking home with them. All right. Well, any last dying questions on anybody's mind? Well, I want to thank everybody for coming today, and please don't be a stranger and don't be afraid to reach out if you have any questions that come up in the process of implementing compostables at your business. And for the fast food representatives on this call, I would love to hear from you, because I want to know how is that happening at a local level if you're from a corporate chain. I'm just really interested how that transition is going to go for you. And thank you to our panelists. We really appreciate you coming and sharing your knowledge base and experience with us. I think this really is going to help other businesses within our community. And then also we'll be sending up a follow-up email with resources and links to all the information that we talked about today, and also the recording of this, so you can view your moment in the spotlight here. Awesome.
Thanks for always marketing for us. We appreciate it. It helps a lot.
I'm sad to hear that Kebab Casual is going to be done for a bit.
Don't be too sad. We'll be all right. we'll announce something on the next panel.
Okay. Right on. I recently discovered that your seasonal roasted veggie gyro is like one of my favorite meals in town.
Glad to hear it.
All righty.
Hi, everyone. Thank you. Thank you, panelists.
Have a great night.